The reel of film that Lena and Devon uncovered had been hidden for decades, a remnant of the 1970s that had somehow survived the purge of evidence. It was found buried in the dark recesses of a fireproof vault, marked with a warning: "Do not watch." It was an old surveillance tape, a relic from the days when electroshock therapy was still practiced at Fairfield Hills Psychiatric Hospital, one of the key institutions built by the mysterious architect they had been investigating. The footage had been destroyed years ago, ordered burned, erased, its contents too dangerous, too incriminating to ever see the light of day. Yet the film had somehow evaded the flames, hidden away in the vault by someone determined to preserve the past. Lena could feel the weight of its history in her hands as she and Devon carefully unspooled the fragile tape. The air in the room grew still as they set up their equipment. Even the ancient projector seemed hesitant to start, the gears grinding as the film finally flickered to life. The first frame was grainy, but slowly the image came into focus. They saw a sterile operating room, cold fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. A solitary figure, a patient, was strapped to an old leather chair. The camera's angle was strange, almost as though the observer wasn't just recording but witnessing something more sinister. Lena felt the familiar chill in the air, the same feeling she'd experienced at Danvers and Trans-Allegheny, as if something unnatural was watching them now too. As the camera zoomed in, the patient on the table, a middle-aged man with vacant, hollow eyes, stared directly into the lens. His face was pale, his skin almost translucent, but what struck Lena was the lapel pin on his hospital gown. It was unmistakable, the same sigil she'd seen in the asylum blueprints. The footage continued. A team of doctors surrounded the man, each wearing identical surgical masks, their faces hidden. They worked in eerie silence, moving methodically, almost as though they were conducting a ritual rather than performing medical procedures. Then the camera cut to something even more unsettling. Another man standing in the corner of the room, his back to the camera. He wore a black coat and a gold lapel pin, the same sigil, his features obscured by shadows. But there was something about him, his posture, the stillness of his movements. He didn't belong. Lena's heart skipped as she leaned in closer, trying to make sense of the man's presence. But before she could ask, the film rolled forward. The doctors began administering electroshock therapy, the man convulsing violently, his body seizing as sparks flew from the electrodes on his skull. Then, as the electricity surged, the camera cut to a new angle. Now, the patient's body wasn't twitching from the shocks. It was still, and a quiet chanting began to fill the audio, barely audible at first, but growing clearer. Lena paused the tape, staring at the image frozen on the screen. She'd heard that chant before, in the halls of Penhurst in Trans-Allegheny. It was the same incantation, echoing in the background, always just out of reach. But this time, it was no longer a whisper. It was intentional. Suddenly, the chanting grew louder, its rhythm unmistakable. "He's coming!" The camera jerked as if the operator had been pulled away. The view shifted erratically, showing a blurred figure moving in and out of the frame. In the chaos, a brief, horrifying glimpse of the man in the black coat appeared again, his face illuminated for a split second. His eyes, too familiar, made Lena's breath catch. It was the same face she had seen in the blueprints, in the shadows of the asylums. The architect. But the strangest thing about the footage was the date on the timestamp. 1977. The man, the architect, had been dead for over 30 years. Devon noticed it too, the unsettling realization dawning on both of them. The doctor from the footage wasn't just any ordinary physician. He wasn't just involved in torturous treatments. He had been part of something bigger, something inherently dark. And he was directly connected to the terrifying, ritualistic nature of the experiments. But the true horror came when Lena rewound the film, analyzing the last frames. The camera angle shifted once more, revealing the patients who had been strapped into their chairs, convulsing violently under the influence of the shocks. But their faces weren't filled with pain. They were empty, detached, as though their minds had already left their bodies. And in the background, visible only for a fleeting moment, was a shadowy figure standing next to one of the operating tables. A figure whose face could not be seen, but whose silhouette, whose presence, sent a wave of terror crashing over them. The figure had no age. He did not change. He simply stood there,